Welcome back to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft podcast. My name is Chris Spear. Today, I want to talk about something that started with a simple question on the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft Facebook group. And the question was this: what's one piece of gear you thought that was a gimmick until you actually tried it? Think about that for a second. What one piece of gear did you think was a gimmick until you actually tried it? And I'm telling you right now, I think all of us can actually answer this question. You all have an answer to this question. It doesn't matter what walk of life. It really don't matter if it don't even have to pertain to primitive camping and bushcraft. Everybody has an answer to that one simple question. Now, I figured I'd get a few comments, maybe a handful of responses, but, the group really did come through, and people started naming all kinds of gear. Like, it was crazy, man. You started seeing these comments after comments after comments. We saw hammocks, Thermacells, Grayls, trekking poles, camp pillows, fire starters. Things that people once laughed at or they ignored or just flat out refused to carry or refused to buy or try. And it got me to thinking, how many times have we overlooked a piece of gear and thought, that's stupid? I will never carry that. How many times have we looked at a piece of gear and said, I will never carry something like that? Only to find ourselves carrying it a few years later. I cannot tell you how many items I have done that with, and it's crazy. I think every outdoors person has done this. I think everybody in all walks of life have done this. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at TV commercials and been like, yeah, I would never. And next thing you know, I got 10 of them. And this brings to mind my father-in-law. He tells a story all the time about pet rocks. He was like, what idiots would have a pet rock? And he said the next day he come home from work and there was about 10 of those pet rocks inside his house. And he's like, well, there you go. So, yeah, that's a funny story the way he tells it. So, but I think we have all done this with gear. I think we have all done this with tools and all kinds of stuff for the great outdoors. And when I was younger, I thought comfort was overrated. I wasn't worried if I slept on the ground. It didn't bother me not one bit. Then when you join the military and you sleep on the ground, you're like, boy, this is horrible. And a lot of infantry folks know about it. A lot of the Army, I was in the Air Force. I didn't have to do it very often. But whenever I did do it, it was horrible. So sleeping on the ground, sitting on a log, it's all, anytime you have to tough it out, man, it's all like, whoa, man, this is crazy. But that's just part of camping, right? No. Then life happens. Then you get a little bit older. You get several injuries, or you collect a few injuries. And you go through life thinking that, oh man, this is horrible. This is horrible. And then you lay down on the ground and it just hurts even worse. You spend years doing all kinds of things that wear your body down. And suddenly a camp chair doesn't seem so silly anymore. I posted a thing, last week's episode was all about camping chairs. And a lot of comments, a lot of everything was on there. And it was real good conversation. We had some real good conversation within the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft Facebook group. You know, a pillow starts to make sense after a while. I personally cannot sleep without a pillow. My neck kills me. A hammock starts looking pretty comfortable. There's a lot of folks out there I can't sleep with a hammock. Well, they'll do an air mattress, and sleep on the ground. My brother's one of those. One of the biggest themes that I saw in this conversation was comfort. Tons of people mentioned hammocks, underquilts, camp pillows, portable chairs, trekking poles. All these things are designed to help you be more comfortable. Hammocks are designed to help you sleep better, to keep you up off the ground when it's hot outside, to keep you cooler. Underquilts are designed to go under the hammocks. And that way, whenever you get out into the wintertime, you don't freeze. You stay nice and warm, nice and comfortable. Camp pillows, you lay down on a pillow because it's comfortable. Trekking poles, people will argue with this, but you know, trekking poles allow you to stay more comfortable, where you won't twist your feet or twist your ankles or your knees or anything like that. So trekking poles really help, and so they help with your comfort. And what's really funny about this whole conversation is that nobody said, I wish I'd have never bought blank. Nobody said it. Now, maybe I could go back and rephrase the question and ask a question again to the point of, what kind of gear was something you thought was something you needed and turned out to be a gimmick? You know, if I rearranged it that way, then I'm sure I would have tons and tons and tons of answers. But a lot of times, a lot of the folks in this conversation just wish they had tried it a little bit sooner. And I thought this was very interesting. I really thought the whole conversation on the group was very interesting. And once you got down through there was a couple of more categories. One of them was fire. Now, if you spent any amount of time outdoors, you've probably heard somebody say that using a fire starter is cheating, or if you can't do it naturally with a bow drill or something to that effect, then it's cheating, or you're not doing it right, or that's not primitive. And that's one of the biggest aspects of this whole thing here on this group is that's not primitive. Well, I've had conversations this past week with individuals that, you know, I posed a question and showed a picture. And these folks was like, that's not primitive camping. That's not bushcraft. Yeah, I've heard it. Pretty sure you've heard it. One gentleman in the group said that he felt exactly that way until he found himself winter camping and spent hours fighting to build a fire. And fire starters come in handy. You know, what is the number one most economical way to start a fire right now? And it's considered a fire starter is the wonderful Bic lighter. It is the most amazing way that every single person on the planet can have a way to start a fire in their pocket at a moment's notice. Sure, if it gets wet. Sure, if it's under 32 degrees. Sure, we get that. We understand that. Everybody understands it. And people is going to argue that all the way from here to eternity. But still, nonetheless, it is the most economical, affordable, most advanced fire starting technique that we have had in history. The match is a close second, but the bit lighter is like the best, you know. Now, there'll be people that argue with me, no, you got to have a ferro rod, you got to have this. But the lesson here was that he thought a fire starter was a gimmick until he used it. Now, I don't care what you say. That's a lesson. That's a lesson they had to learn right there. So when you're cold, you're wet, you're tired, you're trying to get warm, your perspective on a fire starter is going to change real fast. There are people that are traditionalists in the field of bushcraft that they are not going to start a fire unless it is started with some sort of primitive means. To them, that's what bushcraft is all about, is starting primitive. If y'all been around this podcast or my videos or anything that I do, for the longest time, I've been trying to get people to understand that that is not the case. There's different aspects of it. You can go as primitive as you want. You can go as modern as you want and still be considered bushcraft. There's no right. There's no wrong. And it's all a mindset. It's all the knowledge that you use when you head out into the great outdoors. And that's the basis of primitive camping and bushcraft. There is no wrong way. There is only an end result. If your goal is to build a fire and a fire starter helps you build that fire, then who in the world am I to tell you that you're doing it wrong? If your goal is to build a fire and a fire starter, whatever kind of fire starter it is that you want to use, helps you build that fire, who is Joe Blow in the comment section of any kind of social media? Who are they to tell you you're doing it wrong? I mean, seriously, think about that. The fire don't care, does it? The cold weather don't care. The goal is the result. The goal is getting warm. The goal is cooking your food so that you don't get sick or that you can have some hot food. The goal is boiling your water and making it drinkable to where you don't get sick. The goal is to occupy your mind when you're sitting there for hours staring at the television of the woods. The goal ultimately is just to get the job done. And that's what it boils down to, is just getting the job done. Now, another category that I really thought about or really caught my attention was the gear that solves problems. Matter of fact, one of them just came in today. Thermacells. This is going to be a topic of I believe I'm going to do this next week. Next week's topic on the podcast is going to be about thermacells and mosquito control. Because it is summertime, and I don't care where you are affected by them. I lived in Alaska, and they were big enough to be called the state birds. I mean, the mosquitoes there are ferocious. There was one guy trying to tell us that if you was caught outside without any kind of mosquito protectant, you would be drained of your blood in 8 hours. And I was like, golly. But I also was very young and didn't know much about it. But anyway, one of the things that solve problems is called the Thermacell. And I have one right here in my hands. And the Thermacell is a mosquito repellent that you put a little pad in. And it warms that pad up. And that pad creates a 15-foot radius of some kind of... my bifocals aren't working. But it puts out a odor that the mosquitoes do not like. It's a chemical that the mosquitoes don't like. It's odorless to you and me. It does not affect you. It doesn't irritate you or anything of the like. And it don't irritate the deer because I use it all hunting season down here in South Mississippi. I use it during bow season, early bow season before it gets cold. Mosquitoes are horrible out in the swamps down here in South Mississippi. But a Thermacell, I use it. It don't scare the deer off. I end up bagging my deer. And I'll be using a Thermacell. So it has no scent. You can buy scented ones for deer hunting. You can buy earth scent and stuff of that nature. But it solves a problem. It keeps the mosquito bugs away from you. I'm going to dedicate an entire episode just to the Thermacell next week. So what is another item that solves problems? The Grayl, Grayl water filtration system, or the GeoPress. That has been brought up many times during this conversation, and I have brought that thing up in my book several times. I've discussed it. I've done several videos. I've done a whole podcast on the Grayl water filtration. I actually have several different water filters laying around, and the Grayl's the one that I usually take with me everywhere I go. Campcraft Outdoors makes a nice little millbait bag just for the Grayl that you can put your Grayl inside the bag, tote it around like that. That way you can filter all the grit and the grime and the tadpoles out of it before you clog the filter up, and it actually helps your filter last a little bit longer. Now, these things are amazing because you can have clean water anywhere within a few seconds. They say 8 to 11 seconds. I don't know, the older I get, the more seconds it takes to bend over and push that cup into the filter section, but it takes a little effort. But it is still almost instantaneous, 24 ounces of water right then and there when you need it, wherever, no matter what the water's like. Another one that came up was Gorilla Tape. I mean, seriously, duct tape, Gorilla Tape, all these items are great. Duct tape, Gorilla Tape has uses. You can actually use it to close a wound. Heck, if the TV show Mythbusters dedicated an entire season, it seems like, to duct tape, I mean, there's got to be something to it. Another one was compasses. There's various different sizes or different types of compasses. You got the regular Sunto ones that I have, and I've used it, and I've had no problems with it. Can openers is another one. I think somebody called it a P38 or P51. And, these can openers are very helpful whenever you need to get into a can. They are. That way you're not destroying your knife edge trying to get in there and cut everything up. But all these things are not really that exciting, are they? But when you get out in the woods and you need it, you are excited you got it. Ain't nobody going to sit around a daggone campfire and brag about their can opener. I mean, if you have, please leave me a comment under this podcast and let me know how many times you bragged about your can opener. But here's the thing. When you need one, you need one. And that's the funny thing about good gear. most of the time, the best gear isn't very exciting. It just simply works. A Thermacell, it's not exciting at all. There ain't nothing about that thing exciting. Well, I ain't gonna lie. I am gonna backtrack. There is one thing about the Thermacell that is exciting. You can use it as a hand warmer. So when it's freezing cold outside and your hands are freezing, if you're not moving around, you're going to get cold. And your hands are freezing, you can actually use the Thermacell as a hand warmer. So that is one thing that is pretty exciting. But ain't nothing about a Grayl that is exciting. When you're looking at questionable water to drink, then all of a sudden it's going to be one of the most important things that you have with you, or one of the most important things that you own. Like I said before, good gear solves problems. And as I read through all these comments, I started noticing a pattern. You can go down and read through it. Ain't nobody talking about gear. Not really. What they're talking about was basically what their gear did for them. It's crazy. The hammock wasn't about the fabric. The hammock was all about their sleep, getting better sleep. Thermacell wasn't about technology. It was about being able to enjoy camping with a family and friends, all without being ate alive by skeeters. The Grayl GeoPress is not about water filtration. It's about confidence. It's about knowing that that water is going to be safe to drink. And one of the things about the pillow is that it's not about the pillow. It's about waking up in the morning knowing your neck's not going to be hurting. And I could talk about this all day long. Gear it wasn't the story. Gear was not the story in this. All gear was the problem being solved. That was the story. And maybe that's the whole lesson. A lot of times we get so caught up arguing over gear, especially in forums like the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft podcast and the group, the comment sections, all these different locations. We get caught up arguing over the gear. When all reality, we forget why we're carrying it in the first place. You know, we're carrying it because it makes our experiences better in the outdoors. It makes our experiences camping better. It makes our experiences hunting, fishing, kayaking, whatever you're doing out there, mountain climbing, all that. It makes it better. It solves a problem. That's all a gear is supposed to be. It solves a problem. I posted a comment about an air pump the other day, and that is where the one came from, where it is like, it's not very primitive. But the flex tail gear air pumps, those little bitty old things, they solve a problem, because I'm not going to sit there for an hour and a half blowing up an air mattress. It's not going to happen. I can't sleep on the ground. That's not going to happen. And if I don't have a hammock with me, I'm bringing an air mattress and I'm bringing a pump, because I'm not going to sit there and blow it up with my mouth. Like I said, all these little gadgets, all these little things, they all help you enjoy your time in the great outdoors. They help you solve a problem. Now, the caveat to this is that you don't have to go out and get every gadget underneath the sun. Far from it. You need to know how to do these things, and then worry about your comfort later. Practice, practice, practice. And I cannot stress practice enough. It means that you need to stay open-minded, because the piece of gear that you may be laughing at today is going to be the piece of gear that you swear by next year. So let me throw this question back to you. What's one piece of gear you thought was a gimmick until you actually tried it? Well, all right, that's going to wrap it up for today. I really do appreciate everybody stopping by and listening, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Swing by Facebook and join the group. Hop into the conversation. Well, anyway, that's it for today. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Remember, in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths.